Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use that promo code DNVR20 because you'll save 20% off your entire purchase of the CBD infused and deliciously rich, potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I am your host, Drew Creasman. I am the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. And on this episode, I suppose we will discuss for a little bit the Colorado Rockies getting absolutely thwomped, beat down, throttled, dismantled, obliterated by the Los Angeles Dodgers 15-6. Really not a lot of baseball analysis to be done inside of this one. Once again, the Rockies were buried by their starting pitching performance and put behind the eight ball where they couldn't really get their plus side bullpen guys, the handful of them that they do have, into the game. And while there were a couple of spots from the offense, they got the 6 runs. Certainly you didn't feel like at any point the offense was in some kind of great groove either, right? Ryan Castellani gives up 7 earned runs in 4 1/3. It's not going to get it done, obviously. And we've talked before about the tough spot that he's been put in this season and how you can't judge too harshly, where he'll be at in his career based on these first handful of starts. And it's just tough for him and for the Rockies that he's got to be in that spot and that they're not going to get John Gray back. And these are the kinds of things that happen when you have to dip into a complete lack of experience in a game like this. And it just blows up, and there's really not a whole lot you can do. They hit 2 home runs in the second inning, a pair of 2-run jacks, and a lot of other things happened, but that was more or less your ball game. Even with, Fuentes getting them back into it there for a minute with a big home run, you just never really felt like the Rockies were in this baseball game. And, like I said, we can break down the details if that's what you all want to do. We can look forward. We can, whatever the questions you've got here live on the YouTube or on the Periscope, let me know, because this really, Henry, do I fear the Rockies season is going to be over next week, or is there a miracle run coming? Look, I don't think, I've said a couple of times now, I don't think they're going to make it. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, for a myriad of reasons, not the least of which is just the limited amount of time they've got, that they do have these games with the Dodgers, that they're just not playing well as an entire unit. Elements of the team have been good at times, certainly the top 3 now that, Gray isn't in the picture. And so, to answer this question from now going by the end is near, what even is there to look forward to at this point? Starts from Freeland and Marquez and Senzatella, certainly. And, maybe some glimmer of hope that David Dahl's going to get it back. You want to see, obviously, Tapia continue to get it going. Looks like we do have Patrick coming in from just outside of Coors Field there. We figured out a little bit of remote reporting, since this was, as you mentioned on a recent one for us, Patrick, your last game of the season down there at Coors Field. A tough one to take, obviously, not exactly the most beautiful baseball game you've ever witnessed in your life, but certainly certainly still there's a bittersweetness to being at the ballpark for the last time in a year.
It was, yeah, and it was first game with the Dodgers, too, of course, with the first 6 coming in Los Angeles. So it definitely was a fitting end, so to speak, of the 2020 season. But it was nice. It was, as I had mentioned earlier in the week, going back to the ballpark in July was still strange. It was still this no man's land of worrying about safety and everything. But the Rockies organization really did a fantastic job in keeping us safe, and it got better and better as the season went on. And the win-loss record may not have, but the experiences at Coors Field definitely did. And it was somewhat bittersweet here at the ballpark, knowing that it's going to be quite some time. But the next time I'll be back, and I know the next time you'll be back after Sunday, will also be against these same Los Angeles Dodgers as Colorado opens at Coors Field on opening day for the first time in quite some while, and the first time ever against LA at home.
Yeah.
So that will be somewhat interesting.
Yeah, and we'll see. I know a lot of people are ready to start having the conversation about, okay, what do we do now? Start fixing the team, start getting into the off-season stuff. And honestly, we've already started to walk down that road a little bit, and we'll continue to, because that's part of what you do when the team you're covering is totally falling apart there, right? But we're also going to have plenty of time for that. It's going to be a long off season. We're going to be here every day, just like we are regular season, baseball games or no baseball games. We're going to be here most of the days of the week talking about it. So we're going to have time to talk about all of that stuff more and more. But as you can see, I don't know if you can see with your mobile device there, Patrick, but the comments are of course lit up with conversation again about Bud Black, Jeff Bridich, and these questions. These are going to be the prevailing questions as the team continues to not just lose, but lose in an embarrassing fashion, and not just narrowly miss out on a playoff they should have easily been in, but fall toward one of the worst records in baseball now.
I think it makes it, also challenging to, I guess, support the front office and the coaching staff, well, particularly the front office, I should say, when, today it was finally announced who the players to be named later were going to be in the Michael Givens, Kevin Pillar deal. And, certainly anytime you give up an international signing from Dominican Republic that you signed for $350,000, that's a guy that you could come back and haunt you. It certainly is the case for the Chicago White Sox in the case of Fernando Tatis Jr., who they included essentially almost as a player to be named later in the James Shields deal. Although the White Sox, the Padres, did know what they were getting in Tatis Jr. But really, it was a guy like Jacob Wallace, a third-round pick out of UConn. So similar pedigree to a guy like Scott Oberg, fireballer who looked really well last year at a short season Boise with the Hawks. And a couple people, are rightfully upset about that. So when you hear the names attached to who's weakening the organization, or who do you have to give up, and who did you get? Well, Michael Givens will be back for next season. Hopefully, it will work out much better than the Sungwon-Oh trade went down. Now, granted, Chad Spangenberger and Forrest Wall, haven't done anything at the major league level to make you regret that. But you say, you had to give up a little bit more than you would have liked because O had a second year on that deal in 2019. That didn't come to fruition. So you certainly hope that that's not the case with Givens in his second year in 2021. But a guy like Kevin Pillar, you say, man, you give up a third-round pick from 2019 for a rental of Kevin Pillar. And Kevin Pillar was not the difference in making the team a contender. Maybe that's because the team wasn't a contender in the first place. But I would not discredit Bridich for making the deal. I think both of these trades that he made, while it did not work out for the team, I'm okay with the pieces that were given up in this instance, because it gave it gave some hope and it gave some opportunity and told and communicated to the clubhouse, frankly, yeah, our organization believes in this group of players. And maybe that was somewhat of an admittance that, you know what, this might be their final shot. Or if we're going to do this, we might as well give it a chance. So we're going to have to trade these guys. Either way, I'm okay with the players that were given up in the Givens and Pilar deal. So I think some of that criticism from Bridich, I understand where that's coming from, but I, for one, am fine with them really trying to make some moves when you and I both thought they probably were going to be quiet at this trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean the moves in a vacuum were good moves.
Right.
It's not the fault of either of those guys that the rest of the team has fallen apart around them. Both have played well in Rockies uniforms, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for both. But yeah, if the team is competing, then you don't care at all that you gave up Jacob Wallace to get Kevin Pilar. If he's contributing basically what he's been contributing, but with a successful team around him, you're going, great, no big deal. As it is, it's just another, I think, tough pill for Rockies fans to swallow. Patrick, let's go ahead and do the one thing here. Let's do a positive bit. Let's continue to highlight your guy, the only guy who could be the draft king of the game in this one for the Rockies. And remember to use that promo code DNVR over at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Josh Fuentes continues to be a bright spot in these days of darkness for the Rockies. He delivered a huge counterpunch early on that, you know, in any other game, maybe with somebody else on the mound, we might be talking about a game-saving type of moment. But this, you know, obviously didn't be so. But for him to answer that way, get the big home run early, continues to contribute with the bat. We know what he can do on defense. This kid's balling out, man.
Absolutely. When you look at the score, and there's been a couple scores like that this year where you say there's no player of the game because, you know, the offense didn't really do too much. The pitching obviously was, you know, absent. But you look at the box score and you say, all right, Josh Fuentes was 3 for 4. And he had a bulk of the run scoring there, especially early on. As you said, they were down 4-0, and it looked like it was not going to be their night. And with one swing of the bat, the first pitch he saw all night against Alex Wood, boom, goes yard down the left field line, 410 feet. And you say, okay, maybe the Rockies have a chance in this game. Now, that wasn't the case, but in his second at-bat, he singled off your favorite named player, Brusdar Graterol.
Love it.
And then he followed that up in his third at-bat going the opposite way against the shift against Dylan Floro. So he had 3 hits against 3 different pitchers as the Dodgers were operating on a bullpen day. So, you know, he did everything that he needed to do. Again, he might not be a world killer. He might not be a superstar. But he's been a guy in this somewhat lost season that is still, you know, driving forward. He's still trying to move the needle. He's the final cucaracha, so to speak. He's that cockroach that just won't quit. And we even saw him do something he had never done in his career. That was play the outfield.
Yeah, I
had to do the math. It was 5,029 innings and 1 out. He had played on the infield in the minors, going all the way back to 2014, and the majors, and finally got 2 innings in the outfield. Buddy had been mentioning that he had, you know, taken some fly balls in the outfield. I don't think he has a lot of value as a corner outfielder because his glove plays in the infield. So
yeah,
you're hurting him if you do something like that.
Yeah.
But it's still interesting to see that, hey, let's keep him on the field. Let's keep him in the game. Let's keep his bat in the lineup. That was really nice to see.
Yeah, he just continues to be, you know, I think now we're getting closer and closer to that line, and it's tough because he's not going to have enough time, I think, this season to cross the line from nice story to, okay, this is a player you start thinking about how he fits into your future plans. That's just there wasn't enough time, and that's another one of the frustrating things about this season is that you don't even know which of the positives, which of these silver linings you can really truly hang on to. But I think you and I, you know, aren't just looking at this window for Josh Fuentes. We're looking at, and especially you, a longer period of time now, and looking at a very solid ball player that the Rockies are going to have control over to just have in their organization here for a little while, and that's going to allow them to do some things. Whether or not they take advantage of it wisely, we know that's always the question. But he certainly is an asset that in a way, like any undrafted player for any organization or any guy taken past the 8th round, let's say, in a way kind of fell into their laps. And that's a great thing for you to have at this time in your organization when you need assets.
And we know the Rockies love their players, and that's a gift and a curse a lot of times. And it's kind of proof here that you say, you know what, guys that they keep around and they develop and they believe in, they can contribute. You're right, they might not be superstars, but there is something to be said of that kind of loyalty. We see it with Jairo Diaz, where he stepped away from baseball and came back. Ubaldo Jimenez, just before his the official announcement of his retirement just on Thursday, he was brought back into the fold. And so it really is promising to think that eventually when it comes time for, I don't know, year 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 for this organization, that the relationships that they have with former players and managers and the relationship with the community, of course, that they'll really be able to do something grand. The Yankees, of course, we know have a storied history, and growing up and going to old timers games and seeing it, not every old timer came back to Yankee Stadium, because I don't know if you know, but the relationship between the owner, George Steinbrenner, and a lot of players was tumultuous at best.
A little salty.
That's not necessarily the case with the Rockies organization. So, when the time comes for the Rockies to have some reunions, or maybe have their own little old timers day, or whatever it is, fan fest, something, I think it's safe to say most of your favorite players will come back and be there for you again. It's not the last time you're going to see those guys, because the Rockies are fair in that way, and they are very loyal. Josh Fuentes is an example of that. And you look at guys who continue to come back, on the coaching staff each and every spring to just contribute down at Salt River Field. Right. And so, again, it's a gift and it's a curse. But in the case of Josh Fuentes and even guys like a Sam Hilliard, it's most definitely a gift for this organization.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see if they can swing that into keeping that pitching rotation around, which is something we talked about on a recent podcast, and how they can maybe manage to keep this. I was going to say once in a generation, once in the Colorado Rockies history of existence, pitching staff. They've never had.
That's not wordy.
Like this. Is that
you could say generation. You can either use the word generation or all 16 of those words. Either one, it works, Drew.
Yeah, no, you know what? You're right. It's just as catchy, I think. They can keep these guys together and not destroy their financial system the way, say, they would have to in order to keep, as we talked about yesterday, their 3 stars together with Blackmon, Nolan, and then paying Story the big money. That makes it so that you kind of can't do the thing with the rotation. The other way doesn't work. You can keep this whole rotation together, and you can build around guys like even like a Josh Fuentes. Not that he's a build around guy, but the big ticket, the big dollar items, that's often been what's held up the roster. So it's going to be very interesting to see where they move from here. But, to answer Daniel's question, is there any way they make the playoffs? Sure. Again, we've seen crazier things happen, right? We've seen crazier things happen in recent memory. And just a suddenly strong stretch to finish out the season, while a few other teams just sort of generally stagnate. Some of it even isn't straight up, if you've got no faith in the Rockies at all whatsoever, some of it's not even built on that. 2 of the teams that are right in front of them in the playoff race right here feel exactly about their team the way you do, the Mets and the Brewers. They feel exactly about their franchise and about their team as Colorado Rockies fans do. What happened? We had talent. We were building. We thought we were going to do a thing. There was a moment. Why are we this bad? And they haven't been great. And then there's the Cardinals, who are right there in front of the Rockies, who are going to have to play about 17 doubleheaders to finish out their season. So you have no idea how that's going to go. So yeah, they can sneak in by finishing their season off well against the Giants and the Diamondbacks.
I think it's, I don't want to say making the playoffs would do the fan base a disservice, but if they sneak into the playoffs as the 8th seed and get swept, even if they win a game, that would be nice. But if they make the playoffs as the 8th seed, fans are not going to be happy when Bridich or Monfort say, we've been to the playoffs 3 of the last 4 seasons. This has been a playoff team more times than not. And you go, you were 30-30. You barely snuck in the playoffs. And that was only because more than half the league made the playoffs. You really had no shot. And so it's a strange scenario to think about.
Yeah. I mean, barring people responding to it the wrong way, you still want your team to make the playoffs. You still want more baseball. You still want, and you also want to give yourself the opportunity to. By the way, Dan Zimborski, who is a guy who I've battled with online and often just argued with him not even being here on this podcast, and he and I have become very simpatico over the last couple of days over 2 things. One, we both found out that we're each huge Final Fantasy nerds, and so I didn't know he was into that. He didn't know I was into that. So now we love each other, and anything that's ever been wrong in the past is completely 1,000% forgiven, because that matters. And then the other thing is him battling about this playoff stuff, right? And the idea that it might stick around and this might become the norm. And I am so completely with him on that. And that has to be, like, there have been things coming out. Yeah, that face is how I feel. Exactly, Patrick. Rob Manfred saying some stuff, and it's horrible. It's horrible. And I'm with them on all of that stuff. And one of the reasons that he brings up is because a team with a losing record can sneak into the 8th seed, and in a 3-game series, the game of baseball is more chaotic than any other game. You can randomly come out and win a 3-game set against anybody. We just watched the Rockies do it in LA last week. And so while I think that's a great argument against instilling that system forever, it's a great argument for wanting your team to get into the dance this year.
Yeah, it's silly. It really is silly. I mean, you could expand to 7. I mean, even still, 7 is ridiculous, where you just have basically like a play-in, wild card game. Like, before the Cubs and Rockies are, the 4th and 5th seed in the National League. Well, why don't you have the 6th and 7th team play the 4th and 5th team in 2 one-game playoffs? And then so you got to win 2 wild card games, and now you're officially the wild card. You could do that, but in no way does it make sense to have 8, because now the best team in the National League has to go out and win a series,
right?
Just like a team that's just over 500. So if you have those 4 wild card teams playing each other to be the true wild card, okay, that's fine, because now those teams have beat themselves up. So now, if we're talking about 2018, now the Rockies had to use, well, it's very similar to what we saw in 2018. The Rockies had to go ahead and use Herman Marquez in LA in game 163 and Kyle Freeland. So now if they win that game, which they did, well, they didn't win both those games, but they go into the first round of the NLDS, and now they're without their 2 best starting pitchers.
Yeah.
That is fair. That would be fair, because now the best team in the National League is going against a team that is really depleted. They should just have a super easy sweep facing the 3-4 starters and maybe their ace on short days rest. And that's that's what you deserve to get if you're the best
Right.
team over 162.
Actual advantage, yeah.
But to have 8 teams in is ridiculous.
No.
It's stupid.
Right.
I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hate it. It only makes sense this year because there's 60 games, and we have to keep reminding ourselves of that in terms of all of the analysis and overreactions and the positive or negative for any player or any team. But still, yeah, this one feels like it's pretty much falling apart.
And I think ultimately the reason why they came up with 8 was in case they needed to really create a bubble for the playoffs.
Right.
If they said, all right, I think ultimately they were thinking, shoot, if we can maybe get through a month, that'll be enough maybe. And all right, the 8 best teams we'll send them out to wherever the bubble is in Arizona, Florida, or as it's going to be now in Southern California and in Texas. And hey, if we have the 8 best teams, one of them actually has to be really the best team, right? If you only take the best 4, well, shoot, the 5th best team might not be in that group because we only played 30 games, or we only played 60 games. I don't know. I mean, the wild card was created because in 1993 the San Francisco Giants won, I think, 103 games.
103.
So they could make the case that they were the best team in baseball that year, and you could go, that's not crazy. So they created the wild card, and those teams get in. So, if you have 8 teams, one of those teams will be, undeniably the best, and no one will care about, but that 9th place Reds team, if they had gotten in the playoffs with Trevor Bauer, what about Luis Castillo? You go, yeah, maybe, but come on, they're 9th. That's not an argument to make.
No, right. Although Trevor Bauer, though, I do want to see Trevor Bauer pitch in the postseason.
Trevor Bauer is the argument to anything. I mean, at any point, Trevor Bauer.
On the contrary, Trevor Bauer.
Well, now that you and Dan Zimborski are getting along well, I'm just going to have to slide into both of your DMs. I'll have to have a group chat. I'll say Trevor Bauer and then watch the 2 of you guys fight. And I'll be like, okay, the world is back to normal.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we'll find a way. We'll find a way. He did, I was going to say, he did start talking Rockies philosophy again. And I went, damn it, Dan.
I thought you were going to say something about him being into pro wrestling. I was like, that's going to do it right there.
I think he is, though. I think he is, and because I've seen him post even pro wrestling video games and stuff. Like he's playing a little WWE 2K, creating Royal Rumbles with baseball players in it and stuff. So
wow,
yeah,
all right,
yeah, we got to get him on the podcast. So we got to do 15 minutes, and then talk about the things that we actually enjoy and we do all that. So Patrick, got to pay a little bit of the bills here real quick. One of the things that helps me paying the bills, though, a little bit of extra cash that I make down there at the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Got a little easy money because, as it turned out last week, the Kansas City Chiefs did not lose by 100 points. Easy cash out bet right there. Been able to knock out a few others, get a little extra cash in my pocket. They got a few fun ones coming up for football as well. We talk about a lot of different baseball ones here on the podcast when we can. You got your strikeout totals, your home run. I love picking a guy to hit a home run when you feel like a guy's going to be hot. But I'll tell you what, the best deal right now, if you're being really wise about it, is to get over there on the football beat, because you don't even need to know that much about it. You don't got to get into the lines or anybody to do anything specific with this promo code. What you got to do is pick one team to win, put $1 on them, and if that team wins, boom, you got $100, just like that. Easy peasy. Just pick one team you feel like is going to win this next week, week 2 in the NFL. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code DNVR when you sign up and get this can't-miss offer. You pick any team during week 2. Bet $1, win $100 if they win. Simple as that. 1 to 100 if you use that promo code DNVR during sign-up for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
I know my $1 is going on the Houston Oilers. Book it. All right. I'm not making it my pick of the week yet. I should double check, but I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm pretty confident.
I'm pretty confident it is.
That's just me, man.
Is there oil in Tennessee? Wait, no, it's a.
What about the Iowa Barnstormers? I gotta check the lines on DraftKings.
Yeah. Who's George Clooney playing for this year? I haven't checked the.
Oh, deep cut. John Krasinski, I know. Yeah. I think they're both battling for a starting spot there. The Leatherheads.
The Leatherheads, indeed. All right, Patrick. I am, like I've said before, we've got plenty of time in the future to discuss, will the Rockies blow it up or not? What do you do with Nolan Arenado, the GM, all the big picture questions? We're going to be tackling those things for sure. So just want to give you last thoughts on tonight's game and season up to this point. Really, whatever your current thoughts of the moment are down at just outside of Coors.
This is my Jerry Springer final thoughts here. I take it. Yeah, it's frustrating season to say the least, but I think only one team is going to win the World Series, and the other 29 fan bases are going to be frustrated by the season just because of how strange it was. And you say, well, if it was 162, I think they would have a much different outcome, and we'll never know. That's why
that will almost be true.
Yeah, and that's why at DNVR we call it the quest for the asterisk, because this is just a season and a year unlike any other. And I guess my real final thought is one in which it picks up where I started, and that's the Dodgers. They're going to close out Coors Field for 2020, and they're going to open up Coors Field in 2021. And if anyone listening to this wants to be in the stadium on that day, a good 6 to 7 months from now, you need to do your part and take personal pride and look after your own safety as well as your family around you. Do research. Don't take my word for it. Doesn't matter what side you're on. Just go ahead and find out and say, how do I keep myself safe as possible, whether it's a marginal percentage or whether it could be life-changing. That choice could not only save your life, but it will most certainly save the life of somebody around you. And if we do a good enough job of it, you can be here too. You can go inside these gates, because as it were, only Drew and I have been able to go to games here at Coors Field. And we want you here. We want you celebrating. We love having you at the DNVR bar. We absolutely do. But we want to see you here. We love going in between innings, going down to your section, saying hi, meeting you somewhere at the Milk Market, Blake Street Tavern, again, DNVR bar, wherever, to have a pint and hang out and do this thing as a community, because that's what we are at DNVR. We're a community, and it's hard to be a community when you're at a distance. So let's be distant for the next 7 months and make good choices so that when the time is right, and that's opening day 2021, we can all be here and we can celebrate. Really, the choice is yours.
There you go. Couldn't have said it any better myself than that, Patrick. I think those are wise words to go out on. We do. I don't know if I can throw up that graphic. If we can put up that, we do have to throw up the graphic really quick for our king of the game, just because we didn't do that earlier. So we have to take care of our business. But I don't know if I can do it. If I've got access to it. Is that it? There it is. There it is.
You got
there
it.
He was.
Well done.
That's the boy. We had to see him with his crown on. We talked all about him. We talked about Josh Fuentes doing the thing. We talked about you using that code DNVR over at DraftKings Sportsbook. But for the one guy who was able to come out and give you a little bit of a smile tonight, and as Patrick was saying, if you want to see the next chapter of Josh Fuentes live and in person, you want to see what the world's got in store for this kid, what he's going to be able to do next, well, then you got to be able to hang out there you got to take care of yourself, man. You got to take care of everyone around you, and you've got to make it a priority so that we're not having these questions by the time next baseball season rolls around. But before that, we do have a few more games to play this season. It's not over until it is over, in the great words of Yogi Berra. Close enough. It ain't over till it's over, man. We're going to play all the games. We're going to be here every day. We know all of you are going to be here every day, too. Make sure you're following us on social media at Drew Creasman, at Patrick Lyons, at DNVR_Rockies. You got to subscribe to DNVR.com so you don't miss out on any of that written content. Plus, you get discounts on shirts, hats, masks. You get bigger beer when you come down to the DNVR bar. Everything ends up going your way when you end up becoming a member of DNVR. So come hang out with us. But again, do so safely and just continue to be absolutely awesome out there. We will continue to be absolutely Patrick Lyons, Andrew Creasman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.